Hey, Wide Awake family. If you see this, it's your sign to smash that like button. Yes, you listening right now. That way YouTube shows you more amazing stories like this one. We love you all. Now enjoy the stories.
I'd never thought unmatching someone on Tinder could feel like a mistake until that night. It was late, the kind of evening where the diner lights flickered just enough to make the place feel both empty and crowded at the same time. I had decided to treat myself after a long week, sitting alone in a corner booth, scrolling through my phone between bites of soggy fries and overcooked eggs. The booth across from me was empty when I first sat down, but then she appeared. Literally like she had been there in the shadows waiting for me, sliding in opposite me without a word, phone in hand, eyes glued to her screen. At first, it felt surreal. She smiled at me in that casual way people do when they think you might recognize them from somewhere, but I didn't. She looked exactly like the girl from Tinder, the one I had been chatting with off and on for a few weeks. Same hair, same crooked smile, same weird freckle pattern on her cheek. It was uncanny. My brain kept trying to rationalize it. Maybe a twin, maybe some coincidence, but the longer I stared, the less plausible it seemed. We didn't speak, not at first. She just kept scrolling on her phone, occasionally glancing up at me like she could see right through the table. The diner was quiet for the late hour, the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional clatter of silverware the only sounds. I felt my chest tighten. I hadn't agreed to meet her here, hadn't planned this at all. She seemed to exist in the same space as me, but entirely separate like some glitch in reality. I opened Tinder on my own phone, half curious, half afraid, and there she was, staring back at me in the app as if she knew exactly where I was sitting. My thumb hovered over her profile. I unliked, unmatching her impulsively, a small attempt at control in a situation that already felt unmanageable. My stomach churned the moment I hit confirm. The vibration of my phone was immediate, a ping that made my fingers numb. A message from her, or something claiming to be her, appeared instantly, unreadable, just a vibrating blur. I looked up, and the booth across from me was empty. No sound of a chair moving, no shuffle of feet. Just nothing. The seat where she had been slid back slightly, as if someone had left in a hurry, but there was no one. Nothing moved. My eyes darted around the diner. The staff were busy with their own tasks, no one looking my way. The other booths were empty. I could feel the hair on my neck rise, a heat creeping across my skin that made me want to flee, but my legs felt locked in place. Then my phone vibrated again. I picked it up, hands shaking, and saw the messages. Dozens of them, all from her profile, all timestamped the exact second I had unliked her. The screen blurred as the messages multiplied, but none of them had actual words, just small icons, fragments of letters, random punctuation. The vibrations continued even when I tried to close the app, even after restarting the phone. It was as if the phone itself had become a conduit, a physical echo of her presence that refused to leave. I thought about calling someone, anyone, maybe the diner staff, maybe a friend, but I couldn't bring myself to speak. The idea of her still existing in that space, of her having vanished without a trace, yet leaving her phone vibrating like it was alive, made it impossible to form words. I considered leaving, tossing my phone into my bag, and running for the door. But the movement felt slow, as though the room itself resisted my escape. Every time I shifted, I imagined her there, watching from the booth's shadows, waiting for me to make a mistake. My mind went through all the possible explanations. A prank, a twin, someone hacking my phone, maybe a glitch in the app itself. None of them fit. This wasn't digital alone. This was physical, spatial, impossible. She had been there. She had disappeared. Her phone had stayed. And the messages kept coming, vibrating, insistent, patient, like she, or something, was aware of every beat of my heart, every attempt at rationality. I couldn't leave the diner fast enough. Grabbing my coat and sliding out of the booth, I almost dropped my phone, which continued to vibrate, vibrating against the counter like it had weight of its own. Outside, the street was quiet, fog rolling over the asphalt, street lights reflecting off the wet pavement. I tried to convince myself I had imagined it, that maybe I had dozed off, and the girl had never been there. The messages on the phone, still vibrating, proved otherwise. They were too real to ignore, too immediate, too tied to my action of unmatching her. That night, I didn't sleep. I set my phone across the room and watched the vibrations continue, a relentless reminder of the booth, the diner, and the girl who had vanished like smoke but had left herself behind. Every time it buzzed, I jumped, heart pounding, imagining her sitting there across from me again, waiting, watching, ready to continue the conversation I hadn't agreed to finish. Days passed, but the messages never stopped. I tried deleting the app, tried powering off the phone, even changed my number. Nothing mattered. The vibrations returned, the same patterns, the same energy, like the booth itself had followed me home, had manifested in my phone, had found a way to persist beyond physical space. I began to notice her presence in other ways too. Reflections in mirrors that didn't match, a shadow in the corner of the room when I was alone, the faintest hum that sounded like a chair sliding back in some empty diner. I stopped going out at night. I stopped visiting diners. The thought of another booth, another table, another corner where she could appear and vanish, left behind only her phone vibrating with messages, became a weight I carried everywhere. Every vibration of my own phone made my stomach drop, made me think she was still there somewhere, testing boundaries, reminding me that unmatching didn't end it, locking didn't end it, leaving the place didn't end it. Eventually, I realized it wasn't just about the diner or the booth or even her profile. It was about presence, about the ability to exist where you shouldn't, about leaving pieces behind that make someone question reality. Every notification, every buzz, every ping became a small horror, a reminder that she, or whatever she had become, could vanish and persist at the same time. I began to dread the vibration of any phone, the sudden flicker of a screen, the unnatural weight of absence in familiar spaces. Even now, months later, I keep my phone on silent, face down, away from me whenever I walk into a diner, into a cafe, into any space that has booths or corners that could hide someone. I still check the app sometimes, half expecting her to appear again, same phone, same grin, waiting for me across the booth. And I know that if I unmatch again, if I try to disappear, the vibration will follow me, insistent, impatient, unrelenting, a reminder that some presences don't leave, they just linger, waiting for the next time you think you're alone. I thought I had finally put him behind me. After the last date went weird, after the text that made my stomach drop, after I blocked him on every app and social media I could think of, I felt some relief. It was shaky relief, but relief nonetheless. I told myself that was it, done, the chapter closed. I deleted the Tinder app for a few days, tried to distract myself with school, my friends, late night shows, anything to keep my mind off him. A week later, on a lazy Friday night, I re-downloaded Tinder. Just casual swiping, no expectations, mostly boredom. That's when I saw him, or someone who looked exactly like him. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. The same sharp jawline, the same mischievous smile, the same greenish-brown eyes that seemed to flicker like they knew something I didn't. My heart dropped in that weird, sinking way it does when you know something is wrong but can't figure out why. But the name was different, totally different. A random combination of letters, nothing familiar. I stared at the screen for way too long, scrolling through the photos. Each one was identical to the ones he had sent me before, but now labeled under this new account. Same hoodie in the park, same coffee cup on the balcony, same ridiculous pose by the mural downtown. Everything matched. Every single detail. My chest tightened, and I could feel that old panic creeping in. I had blocked him, right? There was no way he could be here. And yet here he was, or someone pretending to be him. I tried to rationalize. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe someone just had the same photos saved from some public profile. But the messages started the same way. The casual jokes, the little observations, the teasing tone. It hit me before I could even read the first few lines. The typing style was identical. The sentence quirks, the emojis, the way they ended messages with that small, teasing pause. It was him. I didn't know how, but it was him, and somehow he had created a new identity. The new name sent me into overdrive. I couldn't block immediately, couldn't swipe away because I needed proof. I needed to understand if my mind was just playing tricks. We started chatting, and it was worse than I expected. The familiarity in the messages, the way he, or whoever, remembered tiny things about me that I hadn't even told anyone else. He talked about my favorite coffee order, the exact spot I liked at the park, even mentioned a joke I'd made in math class that I had never said out loud. I stopped responding after a few minutes, but the messages didn't stop. Notifications kept popping up, timestamps appearing almost instantly after I had re-downloaded the app. It was like he was watching me, waiting for me to engage. The timing was too perfect to be random. I started thinking about all the ways he could have tracked me, through my phone, my apps, maybe even something I hadn't realized. The thought made me feel exposed, violated in a way that didn't involve touching. It was all digital, all unseen, and yet it weighed on me heavier than anyone could understand. That night, I didn't sleep. My phone buzzed constantly, new notifications from the same account. I put it on silent and hid it under my pillow, but I could feel it vibrating against the mattress like it was alive. The messages weren't threatening in the normal sense. They were casual, teasing, like he knew I couldn't ignore them, like he was reminding me that I had no escape. It wasn't just him on Tinder anymore. It was this presence, this shadow, this thing that had followed me across accounts, across devices, into spaces I thought were safe. The next day, I tried to talk to my friends about it, but describing it sounded insane. A new Tinder account, same photos, same messages, same personality, same smile, pretending to be someone else. They suggested it could be some glitch, maybe a hacker, maybe someone imitating him. But I knew. I could feel it in my bones. The energy in the words, the little quirks, the memory of the way he looked at me when we first met, and the smirk he always had when he knew he had control. I didn't go out for the next few days. I avoided the usual coffee shop, skipped the park, stayed home, and tried to ignore my phone. Every time I opened it, the same smile stared back at me, the same casual messages that weren't casual at all. It wasn't just him. It was the way he was inside my mind now, occupying space I hadn't given anyone permission to enter. I thought about deleting my account again, maybe quitting Tinder for good. But even that felt powerless. If he could replicate himself here once, what was stopping him from popping up somewhere else? In Instagram, in Snapchat, maybe even in real life pretending to be someone else entirely. The thought made my chest tighten, my vision blur with panic. I realized it wasn't just online. It wasn't just a profile. It was a pattern, a presence, a fixation, and I was the target. That night, I left my phone on the counter and tried to sleep. But every time I closed my eyes, I imagined that grin. I imagined him watching, waiting for me to engage, planning the next step, already steps ahead. The casual humor, the friendly tone, the teasing. It wasn't friendly, it wasn't harmless. It was control, surveillance, obsession. I knew now that it didn't matter if I blocked him or ran from the app. He had found a way to exist in the spaces I thought were mine. I spent hours scrolling through the profile again, trying to find a flaw, trying to see how he could have done this. But there was nothing. No trace, no connection to the old account, no clues. Just him or the echo of him, smiling at me across the screen like he had always been there, like he never left. And I realized the most terrifying part. He didn't need to threaten me openly. The smile was enough, the words enough, the presence enough to make me feel trapped, to make me feel hunted, to make me feel powerless. I haven't matched with anyone else since. I don't swipe. I don't engage. I just watch the notifications, waiting for the next message to pop up. Sometimes I consider deleting my phone, burning the device, running away. But he could be anywhere, anyone. The same photos, same smile, same typing quirks, just a different name. He's not tied to one identity anymore. He can replicate, reproduce, exist in multiple forms. And I realized that blocking him didn't matter at all. It was like he was designed to follow, to persist, to haunt. The worst part is the casual tone, the easy jokes, the smile. It's not threatening in a normal sense. It's insidious, slow, crawling under your skin until you realize it's not about fear in the usual way. It's about inevitability. It's about knowing that no matter what you do, he, or whatever he's become, will appear again. And you'll recognize it instantly because the smile, the way he types, the eyes that seem to see everything will always be the same. I leave my phone face down now, notifications off, hoping that if he comes back, I won't see him first. But I know it's impossible. He's patient, he's smart, he's persistent. And somewhere out there, he's waiting, smiling, ready to appear again under another name, in another form, in another account. And I know I'll recognize him instantly because nothing else could ever replicate that same grin. I had met her on Tinder a few weeks back. Everything started normal, funny messages, memes, small talk. But the first time we met in person, something felt off. She had this, Intensity that didn't match her profile, like she was studying me, measuring me. At first I thought it was just nerves or maybe first date jitters, but as the night went on, I realized it was something else entirely. She seemed to know things about me that I had never mentioned, little habits, favorite routes, random thoughts. It was unsettling, but I tried to push it aside. We ended up at a quiet bar near my apartment. We ordered drinks and sat in a corner. The first half hour was fine, just conversation, laughter. Then I noticed my phone acting weird. Texts from her popping up faster than she could possibly type. Messages that referenced thoughts I hadn't shared, questions I hadn't answered out loud, things that didn't make sense. My stomach dropped. I tried to ignore it, thinking maybe my phone glitched. Then it got worse. She suggested we leave, and I felt this rising panic. Something about the way she smiled, the way she moved, made me want out. I decided I needed backup. I had a code with my friend, something we made for emergencies. Just one word, save me. I typed it quickly and sent it, hoping my friend would understand and call or show up. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed. I glanced down, heart racing. It was a reply, but the number wasn't my friend's. It was hers. The message said, "Okay, stay calm, I'm coming." And then she looked up at me and smiled the same way she had before. My blood ran cold. She had somehow intercepted the message, pretending to be my friend, making it impossible for me to call for help. My mind raced. How could she have done this? I had never shared the code with anyone else. I hadn't given her access to my phone. The message made it clear she was always one step ahead, like she had predicted I'd try to escape, predicted my plan, and now I had control over it. I tried to stand up, move toward the exit, but my legs felt heavy, my body tense. Every instinct screamed run, but my brain couldn't keep up. She got up too slowly, blocking the path. Not aggressively, but in a way that made it clear I wasn't leaving without her noticing. The bar seemed to shrink around us. I felt trapped, but it wasn't just physical. It was digital too. My phone was no longer my lifeline. It was a leash, and she had the other end. I remember thinking about all the things she might have prepared, the ways she could have followed me or tracked me without me knowing. Every notification, every alert, suddenly seemed like it could be her. The air felt thick, like the walls were listening. I wanted to throw my phone, smash it, anything to get free, but my hands trembled too much. She didn't speak, didn't need to. The message said everything. She knew my panic, my desperation, my attempt to call for help, and she turned it back on me. She had inserted herself into my safety net. She was everywhere and nowhere at once. I realized then that I was completely exposed. The code that should have saved me had only confirmed her power over me. I tried to think fast. Maybe if I acted normal, she'd relax. Maybe I could find a way to leave when her attention slipped. But her eyes didn't leave mine. Every move I made, every shift in posture, she mirrored or anticipated. I couldn't fool her. My phone buzzed again. Another message from her pretending to be my friend. Short, sharp knowing. Just a few words that made my stomach twist. She had read my panic, understood my mind. Time became distorted. I didn't know how long I sat there, trapped between my own terror and her quiet control. The bar's background noise felt surreal, like a soundtrack to a nightmare. I kept imagining my friend rushing in, saving me, but the phone told me it wasn't going to happen. She had already blocked that path. I thought about calling someone else, my parents, anyone, but I didn't want to give her any sign of resistance. She had the power to see my actions before I took them, it felt like. Every strategy I considered evaporated before I could act. The phone in my hand, which once felt like a lifeline, was now just a reminder that the code meant nothing. She had rewritten the rules. She leaned back, still smiling that same expressionless grin. It was calm, casual, but underneath it was calculated, a quiet menace. The messages kept coming, each one reminding me that I was trapped. The code, my clever plan, my lifeline, had failed. And the worst part was understanding that she enjoyed it, that she'd anticipated everything I would do to try and escape. And now she watched, amused, as I sat frozen, powerless. I don't remember how the night ended. I left eventually, I think maybe she let me go, or maybe I stumbled out while pretending nothing happened. But the messages didn't stop. Every alert made my chest tighten. Every sound of my phone vibrating made me think she was there, still watching, still controlling, still pretending to be someone who was supposed to help me. Even now, I check my phone compulsively, triple-checking numbers before I call anyone, terrified she might intercept again. I deleted the code, changed everything I could, but the memory lingers. The way she smiled when she pretended to be my friend, the calmness that made it clear she had already won. The code that was meant to save me ended up proving how powerless I was. It's been weeks, and I still replay it in my mind. I can't bring myself to use Tinder again. Every new notification makes me jump. I can't explain how she did it or why she knew. But I know she was always one step ahead, always in control, always pretending to be someone else. And I realize now that some people aren't just dangerous. They rewrite the rules so you can't even try to save yourself. I had matched with him on Tinder after a few weeks of casual swiping. His profile seemed fine, funny, into hiking, like dogs, the usual. We chatted for a bit, nothing intense, and then decided to meet at this small bar downtown. I wasn't expecting much. I mean, Tinder dates rarely go anywhere, right? I figured it would just be a drink, and then we part ways. He arrived wearing a hoodie and a cap, nothing too flashy. First impressions weren't bad, just kind of ordinary. We grabbed drinks, sat in a corner booth, and started talking. The first half hour was normal. We laughed at dumb jokes, talked about work, music, that kind of stuff. I was trying to relax, trying not to overthink it, because the vibe felt fine. Then, somewhere around the middle of the date, he pulled out his phone. At first, it was just casual, scrolling through something. Then he tapped on another device on the table, a second phone I hadn't noticed before. I thought maybe it was a work phone or something. He unlocked it, and that's when my stomach dropped. On the screen was my Tinder profile. Everything looked normal, my pictures, my bio, but then I noticed the messages. They weren't mine. Lines that I would never write, words that didn't fit my tone, messages that implied things I'd never say, all sent from my profile. He was scrolling through them, smirking, tapping on each one like he was reading a diary. I froze. The bar noise faded around me. People talking, glasses clinking, music playing. None of it mattered. I stared at the phone, trying to convince myself I was seeing things, that maybe it was some kind of glitch. But no, the messages were real. They had timestamps, the blue tick showing they were read, conversations with people I didn't know but sounded like they were meant to manipulate or trap me somehow. I asked him about it. His response didn't make sense. He said nothing, just smiled wider, leaned back, and started scrolling again. The more I looked, the more horrified I became. Messages that weren't mine but somehow looked like they were written in my voice. Conversations I never had, replies I never sent. It was my profile, but not me. Someone else was in control. Someone else knew what I would say, or maybe, worse, made me say it without knowing. My heart was pounding. I tried to think rationally. Maybe it was a copy, a clone, some kind of app glitch, but deep down I knew it wasn't. The messages were too personal, too specific. They referenced things only I would know, details from my life that I hadn't posted anywhere. It felt like he had been inside my head, reading my thoughts, predicting me, or worse, rewriting me. He didn't stop. He leaned over, showing me more. Each message was darker, creepier, revealing parts of myself I never wanted to see. Things that sounded like thoughts I'd never admitted aloud. I realized then that he had been tracking me, somehow collecting enough information to make my own profile speak for him. I couldn't breathe. The idea of someone controlling a version of me, a digital shadow, was suffocating. The bar felt smaller, tighter, like the walls were closing in. My drink was on the table, untouched. I wanted to get up, leave, but I didn't. I felt paralyzed, glued to the booth. The second phone was heavy in his hand, heavy with meaning, heavy with the feeling that I had no privacy, that someone had taken something that was mine and twisted it into something I couldn't control. He finally locked the phone, leaned back, and smiled at me. It wasn't a smile meant for fun. It was the kind that belongs to someone who knows they have power, who knows they cross a line and it terrifies you. I felt exposed, like I was stripped bare in a way I couldn't defend against. The date, the small bar, the dim lighting, it all felt like a trap. I managed to excuse myself, telling him I had to go to the bathroom. As I walked away, I kept thinking about that second phone, the messages, the control he had over my digital self. I didn't know if he had more devices, if he had copies of other people, if this was just me. My mind raced with possibilities, each one worse than the last. In the bathroom, I stared at myself in the mirror, trying to steady my breathing. My reflection looked normal, thankfully, but I couldn't shake the image of that second phone, my profile, my messages. and him scrolling through them like they were a game. It wasn't just a date gone wrong. It was someone invading a part of me I thought was private, turning my identity into something manipulable. I left the bathroom and told him I needed to leave. He didn't protest. He didn't move. He just watched me go with that same unsettling smile. Outside, the cool air hit me, but it didn't make the fear go away. I felt like I was being followed, not physically, but digitally, like he could reach through my phone, through my apps, through everything I thought was mine. I haven't logged back into Tinder since. I deleted the app, changed passwords, even considered deleting other social media. But the thought lingers. What if he kept a copy? What if he can still see a version of me, talking to people, sending messages I never sent? Every time my phone buzzes, I flinch. Every time I pass a bar or a cafe where we might meet, I feel eyes on me. It's not just the date I can't forget. It's the violation, the knowledge that someone turned my digital self into a puppet while I was sitting across from them, thinking it was just a casual evening. Sometimes I wonder if he did this to others, if he has a whole network of phones, profiles, and messages, each one a mirror of someone's life, controlled and manipulated without them knowing. The thought terrifies me more than anything. I keep imagining him, leaning back in a booth somewhere else, scrolling through another phone, smiling at a profile that looks real, but isn't, knowing everything and nothing all at once. It's been weeks, but I still can't stop thinking about that second phone. The way it showed a version of me I didn't recognize. The way it made me feel powerless. I can't go back to Tinder. I can't trust anyone online. I can't even trust my own profile. And sometimes late at night, I swear I can hear notifications in my mind, messages appearing that I didn't write, conversations I never started, and I think maybe that's the scariest part of all, knowing that someone out there has a copy of you that you'll never be able to reclaim. I thought the restaurant looked cool when I walked in. It was one of those places with dim lighting, booths along the wall, and mirrors on every surface to make it feel bigger than it really was. I was nervous, as usual, because Tinder dates are always a gamble, but she seemed normal in her messages, funny, sarcastic in a way I liked. When she waved at me from across the room, I felt a little relief. Maybe this one wouldn't be weird. The first part of dinner went smoothly. We talked about movies, music, favorite foods, stuff like that. She laughed at things I said in a way that felt genuine, and I started to relax. The waiter brought our food, and the place had this warm buzz, the kind that makes everything feel casual, safe, normal. I was looking around, trying to take it all in, and that's when I noticed it. There was a mirror angled behind her, reflecting her face perfectly. I was staring for no real reason when I saw the reflection smile. The problem was she wasn't smiling. Her lips were straight, relaxed, like she hadn't even noticed me looking, but the mirror showed this grin, wide and sharp, almost too perfect. My stomach dropped. I blinked, thinking maybe it was a trick of the light, but the grin stayed. I tried to shrug it off, thinking maybe I was imagining it. Maybe it was my nerves or the weird lighting in the restaurant. But every time I glanced at the mirror, the reflection smiled when she didn't. Her real face stayed neutral, even as the reflection's grin stretched further, almost like it was mocking me. I tried to focus on the conversation, on what she was saying, but I couldn't stop looking. The grin felt alive, like it was aware I was watching. I started noticing little things. When she tilted her head to the side, the reflection tilted too, but the grin stayed. When she sipped her water, the reflection's grin widened. It wasn't just a normal reflection. It was her, but not her. Something else, something wrong. My hands started to sweat, and I felt trapped, like the mirror had me in its grip. I couldn't look away, but I didn't want to. Every laugh she made sounded normal, but the grin behind her eyes in the mirror felt like it belonged to a stranger. As dinner went on, the reflection became more pronounced. It would smile when she frowned, smile when she spoke seriously, smile when she touched her hair. I caught myself staring for minutes at a time, heart racing, trying to make sense of it. People around us were eating, talking, laughing, oblivious to whatever was happening in that mirror. But I couldn't escape it. It followed her, followed me, stared at me. At one point, I excused myself to the bathroom, hoping to shake it off. On the way, I passed the mirror again. The grin was there, but now it felt intentional, like the reflection knew I had noticed. My stomach twisted. I wondered if she even knew. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't. Maybe it wasn't her at all, but something taking her shape. When I came back, I tried to sit normally, focus on her, focus on the conversation, but my eyes kept drifting. She talked about her day, about her work, and I nodded, but inside I was panicking. The grin kept appearing in the mirror. It wasn't subtle anymore. It was wide, showing too many teeth, too precise. It wasn't just mimicking her. It was performing, putting on a show for me, aware that I was watching and that I couldn't look away. I thought about leaving, about saying something, about calling the waiter and asking if the mirror was cracked or if something else was going on. But I didn't. I couldn't. It felt like that reflection had some kind of hold over me, pulling my attention, making me stay, forcing me to witness it. I wondered if it could see me too, if it was aware I was aware. The rest of the date was a blur. I remember finishing my food mechanically, trying to ignore the mirror, trying to laugh at her jokes, trying not to stare. But every time I caught movement out of the corner of my eye, the grin returned, bigger than before, wider than it should have been, perfectly at odds with her neutral face. It made me feel exposed, like the mirror was recording my fear, feeding on it. When we left the restaurant, I felt relieved, like I was escaping something. But outside, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The grin stayed in my mind. It wasn't her. It couldn't have been. But it mirrored her perfectly down to the tilt of her head, the way she moved her hands, even the small quirks in her posture. It knew her, but it wasn't her. I tried to convince myself it was a trick of the restaurant, of the lighting, of my imagination. But the memory of that grin felt too vivid, too deliberate. I replayed it in my head over and over, trying to rationalize. But the more I tried, the more I saw it, and the more it felt like it had its own life. I couldn't unsee it. It haunted me for days, the idea that something could mimic a person perfectly but not be that person smiling when they didn't. Even now, when I think about mirrors, about reflections, about how something can look familiar and still be completely wrong, I feel that same tightening in my chest. The grin is burned into my memory. It wasn't just a date. It was an encounter with something that mirrored reality but twisted it in a way I couldn't escape. I haven't gone back to that restaurant. I haven't gone on another Tinder date since. Sometimes I wonder if that reflection is still there, smiling for someone else, waiting for the right person to notice, to panic, to feel trapped the way I did. I can't shake it. I can't forget it. The image of her smiling reflection, which she wasn't smiling at all. It's like it exists somewhere, watching, performing, and I'll never see a mirror the same way again. I thought I was just going out for a casual dinner. It was one of those Tinder matches that seemed normal, funny, easygoing. We picked a diner in town, one of those places with booths that stick to your jeans, and neon lights flickering overhead. I was already running late, but she said it was no problem, smiling when I arrived. There was something relaxed about her energy, the way she carried herself, and I liked that immediately. The first half hour was smooth. The usual small talk, laughs about work, music, the mundane things people talk about to feel connected. She had this habit of tilting her head just slightly when she was thinking, and I noticed little details about her that felt genuine. I remember thinking this might actually be a date that goes okay, a kind that doesn't leave you with a headache or a weird story to tell your friends. Then her phone rang. She frowned, answered, and held the phone away from her ear for a moment, like she couldn't quite believe what she was hearing. Her face went pale, her eyes darted around, and I could feel the sudden tension in the booth. She murmured something that I couldn't catch, her voice tighter than before, and she nodded a few times. My stomach sank. I asked if everything was okay, and she paused, looking at me with that same blank stare, like she was trying to decide whether to lie or tell the truth. She told me there'd been an accident involving her family. Just a quick line, but it hit me like a brick. My heart raced. My brain immediately went through scenarios, imagining what could have happened, how serious it might be. I was tense, panicked, trying to figure out if I should call someone, drive somewhere, do something. But then, in the same breath, she smiled. A full, calm smile that made my chest tighten even more. She told me it never happened, that there was no accident, that it was a prank, a mistake, nothing real. My stomach twisted because I wasn't sure what frightened me more, the idea that her family was in danger, or the fact that she had smiled, calm, after saying it wasn't true. I tried to laugh it off, but it didn't come out right. My mind kept replaying her expression during the call, the way her body hadn't tensed at all, how she seemed to enjoy the tension she'd just caused. I remember staring at her across the table, the plate of food between us suddenly meaningless, the diner lights flickering overhead, casting odd shadows on her face. As we continued the date, I couldn't shake the feeling. She was calm, collected, like nothing had happened, but my brain kept rewinding that split second of panic. Every little gesture she made after that, the way she reached for her water, the way she laughed at something small I said, felt like it was meant to mess with me. Not intentionally cruel, at least not in an obvious way, but I could feel her control over the situation. She had inserted chaos and then removed it, leaving me aware of how powerless I felt. I noticed small things after that. The way her eyes lingered on mine a fraction too long, the way she tilted her head when I tried to explain what I thought about the call, the way her tone subtly shifted, almost like she knew exactly how far to push and when to pull back. It was like she had rehearsed every reaction, every movement, every way to unsettle someone without ever breaking the surface of a normal conversation. After dinner, I walked her to her car. She said it was fine. She'd drive herself, but her smile had that same eerie calmness. I wanted to ask if she ever did things like that, to see if she knew what she'd just done to me emotionally, but something held me back. The thought of confronting her made my skin crawl. I left, my mind racing the whole way home, imagining the call, the way she smiled, how normal it looked when nothing should have felt normal at all. Later that night, I replayed everything in my head. The call, the way she said nothing happened, the smile. It was too precise, too controlled. No one casually smiles after saying a loved one is safe following a fake accident. No one does that without knowing exactly the effect it will have. I realized then it wasn't just about the call. It was about me, my panic, my trust, the way she had everything measured. It was her power over the perception of reality, and it wasn't something that felt safe. I kept thinking about why she would do it. Was it testing me? Some weird thrill. Maybe she wanted to see how I reacted, or maybe she just found it amusing that she could. The more I thought about it, the less it made sense. There was no pattern, no warning, just a sudden intrusion of fear, and then her calm erasure of it. I remembered her Tinder profile, the photos, the casual lines about traveling, food, hobbies, and it all felt like a mask now. Like she was always performing, always measuring, always aware of the effect she could have on someone in a fraction of a second. The more I replayed it, the more the memory of her smile stayed in my mind. Not a happy smile, not a sad smile, but a smile that belonged to someone who had a hidden script, someone who could insert chaos into a moment and walk away untouched, someone who didn't need to explain themselves. It was enough to make me never want to meet her again, and also enough to make me wonder what else she could do without ever saying a word. I deleted Tinder the next day, logged out of every app, blocked her number. It wasn't just fear, it was a lingering, crawling unease, the kind that sits behind your ribs and moves slowly, impossible to shake. I couldn't tell anyone about it without sounding paranoid, because she seemed like any normal person who smiled and laughed at dinner. I kept thinking about the exact way her eyes had flicked toward me during the call, the almost imperceptible twitch at the corner of her mouth. It was a moment I couldn't unsee. Sometimes I wonder if she's out there, doing the same thing to someone else. Maybe she waits until the perfect moment to inject panic, and then withdraws it, enjoying the control, enjoying the fear. I don't think she's dangerous in a physical sense, but the idea of someone capable of that level of precision, capable of creating a fear that feels real, and then casually smiling at its erasure is disturbing. It changes the way you trust people, the way you think about normal dates, normal conversations, normal smiles. I can still see her in my mind, sitting there across the diner table, pretending everything was normal, delivering panic and relief in a single elegant motion. It wasn't the call. It wasn't even the fake accident. It was her. Her awareness, her precision, her complete control over a situation that could have destroyed me emotionally. That's what I remember most, the smile at the end, calm and perfect, like she'd been waiting all along for me to feel exactly what she wanted me to feel. I thought I was just going to a casual dinner, nothing serious, with this girl I matched with on Tinder. Her profile made her seem chill and funny, someone you could actually have a conversation with. We agreed on this small tapas place that wasn't too crowded, a few low tables, dim lighting, live acoustic music playing softly in the background. It felt low pressure, and I liked that. She showed up a little late, smiling, apologizing as if she just finished something important. She seemed normal enough at first. The usual flirting, the laughs, small talk about work, hobbies, music. Nothing weird. I felt relaxed, even enjoying the conversation more than I expected. Then, midway through our third course, something shifted. She laughed at a joke, and for a second I thought she looked different, not in her appearance, but her energy, the way she carried herself. It wasn't subtle. Her voice changed, the expressions on her face changed. She went from playful to cold, calculating, almost unreadable. The easy vibe we had was gone, replaced with something else entirely. I asked her a question about her favorite movies, and she responded in a way that didn't match the person I'd been talking to for the past hour. Her interests, her tone, even her mannerisms were completely different. It was like she was a completely new person occupying the same body. I chalked it up to nerves or maybe some personal issues she was having, tried to steer the conversation back, but the change stuck. She would alternate between the two versions, switching back and forth in seconds, sometimes mid-sentence. The inconsistency was unsettling. My gut tightened, telling me this wasn't normal. We finished eating, and she suggested a walk. I agreed, hoping that maybe outside, with fresh air, things would settle. But as we stepped onto the street, I noticed the same thing happening again. Her mannerisms, her laugh, her posture, constantly shifting. I felt like I was talking to two completely different people sharing the same face, the same clothes, the same body, but with distinct personalities that didn't match. I left her at the corner, telling her I needed some time alone. She smiled that same ambiguous smile that made me uneasy. Not angry, not sad, just something else entirely. When I got home, I couldn't shake the feeling. It wasn't just that she acted different. It was that the person I had met wasn't fixed. She didn't seem like herself at all, and somehow I felt like I hadn't met the same person as the guy on Tinder. The next day, I mentioned the date to a friend. He raised an eyebrow and asked if I remembered her name. I told him, and his face went pale. He said casually that he'd gone on a date with her that same night. I laughed at first, thinking he was joking, but he wasn't. He described a completely different person, different laugh, different energy, different interests. Confused, I texted another guy I knew from Tinder, who said he'd also met her that evening just an hour after I had. Again, completely different personality, completely different demeanor, completely different everything except her face. The realization hit me slowly, like a wave washing over my stomach. Multiple men had met this her on the same night, each one describing someone else entirely, but all of them somehow matching the face I had seen. The more I thought about it, the more impossible it felt. It wasn't just a trick of perception. It wasn't alcohol or tiredness. I remembered the subtle inconsistencies, the impossible shifts in energy, the way she carried herself like she could be someone else in a heartbeat. I went through my messages, photos, even videos I had taken during the date, trying to reconcile what I saw with what everyone else described. Nothing added up. Even in photos, there was a flicker, a subtle wrongness, a blur in her expressions. Videos showed her moving normally, but her reactions, her expressions, didn't match what she had said or done. I started checking her Tinder profile looking for clues. Everything seemed normal, except for the tiny inconsistencies in her photos. Backgrounds that didn't match, lighting that seemed off, angles that didn't align with the location descriptions. I even wondered if someone had been digitally altering images to make them appear different, but the faces were always hers. I couldn't explain it logically. It was like her identity was fluid, reshaping itself depending on who she was with. Maybe it wasn't even intentional. Maybe she didn't even realize it herself. But the thought of multiple versions of someone existing at the same time, meeting different people, changing just enough to manipulate perception, it was horrifying. I didn't reach out to her again. I couldn't. It wasn't just fear. It was the dread of not knowing who or what I had actually met. The idea that the person I shared a meal with could be someone else entirely, someone mutable, someone unknowable, made me question every memory I had of that night. Later, I ran into one of the other men she had met that same night. He described her in ways I would never have imagined. Confident, playful, sarcastic. Nothing like the girl I had known. It confirmed what I already feared. The day I had wasn't real in the sense I understood it. The version of her I had interacted with had been fleeting, a copy, a shadow, and she, or it, had moved on to someone else, reshaping herself to meet their expectations, their perceptions, like she was constantly morphing into the perfect version for whoever she was with. Thinking about it now, I still can't process it fully. The night wasn't a normal bad date. It was something else, something that defies explanation. The idea that a person could exist in multiple forms at the same time, simultaneously meeting different people, living multiple experiences in parallel, it haunts me. I stopped using Tinder for a while after that. The thought of someone smiling at me, shifting in ways I couldn't anticipate, was enough to make me avoid going on dates entirely. It's not just fear of getting hurt. It's fear of not knowing if I was ever actually meeting a person at all. The memory of that night stays with me, and every time I think I see someone new, a part of me wonders if they're already someone else for someone else tonight. His profile looked normal enough, smiling selfies, a few photos at concerts and restaurants, nothing that set off alarms. We picked a small, dimly lit Italian place downtown. Cozy booths, soft lighting, quiet enough to actually talk without yelling over everyone. I liked that it felt private. The date started fine. Awkward jokes, polite compliments, the usual small talk. I thought maybe this could be okay, even if there wasn't an immediate spark. After the main course, I told him I needed a minute in the bathroom. Nothing weird, just wanted to check my makeup and grab a breather. He nodded, smiling like it was no big deal. I walked toward the bathroom, pushed the door, and it wouldn't budge. At first, I thought it was locked. Maybe someone forgot to close it properly. I jiggled the handle. Nothing. I tried the other stall door. Same thing. Then a voice came over the restaurant's speaker system. Familiar, calm, too controlled. It was him, telling me to finish the date. My stomach dropped. I laughed nervously at first, thinking maybe someone else was playing a prank. Maybe my mind was imagining it. But then the voice got more specific. He started describing things I had just done at the table, how I sipped my water, how I brushed my hair back, even the way my hands were shaking slightly when I checked my phone. My first instinct was to push the door harder, to force it open, but it wouldn't move. I pulled, twisted, pressed my weight against it. Nothing. Panic started to creep in, and with it, a cold awareness. He had been watching me more closely than I ever realized. Through the speakers, he started narrating things only I would know. The exact words I had whispered to myself while thinking he wasn't listening. The way I shifted in my seat when I felt him staring. Even thoughts I hadn't shared aloud. I felt trapped, but not just physically. The air felt heavier, the light warmer, the shadows moving just slightly wrong. I couldn't see him, but I felt his presence. The voice sounded like it was everywhere, like it was inside the walls, coming from the vents, the ceiling, even behind the mirror. I tried to yell, pounding on the door, screaming, hoping anyone would notice. The other diners didn't react. Their conversations carried on, dishes clinking, forks scraping plates. It was like the world outside this bathroom existed in a different plane, completely unaware of what was happening to me. The voice kept going, urging me to finish the date, narrating every detail of my movements inside the stall. Every breath, every heartbeat, every second I struggled against the door. It was precise, like he had been recording me for hours, memorizing my gestures and timing, anticipating my panic before it even started. I pressed my back against the door, sliding down until I was sitting on the cold tile floor. My knees hugged my chest. I tried to think, to rationalize, but it was impossible. The voice described exactly what I was doing, exactly how I felt. It was as if it could read me, as if the walls themselves had been listening all along. Time lost meaning. Minutes felt like hours, hours like days. The more I tried to focus on something else, the louder the voice became, feeding off my fear. It wasn't just instructions. It was observations, reminders of how trapped I was, how powerless. I noticed the reflection in the mirror for the first time, my own eyes, wide and frantic, staring back at me. And then, just behind my reflection, I thought I saw a shadow move. Subtle, but deliberate. It vanished when I blinked, leaving only the mirror and my own terrified face staring back. I tried the door again. Still nothing. I tried the other stall. Still locked. It was like the entire bathroom had become a cage, and he was outside controlling every detail. The thought hit me that he must have some access to the building, maybe even the security system, to speak over the speakers so easily and know my exact movements. Hours could have passed, or maybe just a few minutes. The voice never stopped, never paused, always narrating, always observing. At some point, it changed slightly, more insistent, almost playful, urging me, coaxing me like I was part of some twisted performance I hadn't signed up for. Finally, after what felt like forever, the door clicked. Unlocked. I bolted out, hands shaking, head down, trying to act normal, trying not to scream in the restaurant. The dining room looked the same, people eating, servers moving, nothing out of place except me, trying to catch my breath. He was gone. No sign of him anywhere. My mind raced, trying to process what had happened. How had he gotten control of the bathroom, the speakers, my sense of safety? Had anyone else seen him, or had it been just me, trapped inside that tiny world for hours, while the outside moved on unaware? I left immediately, paid my bill in a daze, never looking back. I don't know if he ever noticed me leaving. The thought that he could have been watching, listening, tracking me the entire time, made me feel like the walls of every restaurant I've ever been in might hide speakers, shadows, or secrets waiting to trap me. Since that night, I avoid going out alone, especially at night. Bathrooms in public places feel like cages now, every speaker a potential threat. Every background hum makes me jump. The date was supposed to end with dessert and casual conversation. Instead, it ended with me sitting on the cold tile of a bathroom stall, listening to his voice narrate my fear. I thought it was just a regular Friday night when I matched with her on Tinder. Her pictures were cute, but nothing crazy. The usual coffee shop selfies, a couple of outdoor shots, a messy-haired selfie that made me think she could be fun to hang with. We decided to meet at this small diner downtown. I liked it because it wasn't crowded and I knew they had booths tucked away where you could actually talk without shouting over other people. I arrived a few minutes early and picked a booth near the back, facing the window. She came in a little late, smiling like she just stepped out of a movie scene. The first 10 minutes were fine. Awkward small talk, me trying not to spill my coffee or laughing at jokes that weren't that funny. But then she started pointing out things around the diner, little details that didn't seem unusual at first. She mentioned a stain on the floor near the counter, saying it looked like spilled syrup from the morning rush. I glanced down. She was right. I had never noticed it before. Then she commented on a cracked tile near the bathroom and a smudge on the booth behind us. Still nothing that weird. Maybe she just had a good eye. But then it got too specific. She described the exact words written on a note someone had left taped to the ketchup dispenser, the angle the chair was pushed back at, the way the sunlight hit a coffee cup on the counter. I froze. I had been staring at these things myself just minutes before, thinking no one else would notice. She knew details that weren't obvious, details I hadn't shared with anyone. I laughed nervously, tried to brush it off, thinking maybe she had been there before. Maybe she was just observant, but the tension kept building. Every time I moved my gaze around the diner, she seemed to notice something new, and the way she described it wasn't casual. It was precise, like she was seeing it in real time from my exact angle. My stomach sank when I noticed her phone screen flicker across the table. She was texting, but her phone showed a map instead of the messaging app. And that map, it wasn't showing her location. It was showing mine. The little blue dot I'd seen before on Maps apps, my exact location inside the diner, moving slightly when I shifted in the booth. I leaned back, pretending to stretch, trying to make sense of it. Maybe it was some new app, maybe a tracking glitch, maybe coincidence. But the way she kept commenting on tiny details, my coffee stirrer, the smudge on my sleeve, the way my hand rested on the table, it was too exact. After I noticed the map, everything clicked. She wasn't just observing the room. She was watching me. My movements, my gestures, my small fidgeting. Everything I did was mirrored in her comments, perfectly timed. And she had been doing it the whole time, probably before I'd even realized it. I tried to focus on the conversation, on her stories about school and her weekend, anything to make my mind slow down. But I couldn't stop glancing at her phone. The little blue dot tracking me, showing my location perfectly, moving in real time. The diner felt smaller suddenly, every wall closing in, every sound amplified. The hum of the refrigerator, the clink of dishes from the kitchen, the faint footsteps near the bathroom, all felt like background noise to the one thing I couldn't ignore, her knowing exactly where I was at every second. I made an excuse to check my own phone. Location off, Bluetooth off, nothing running in the background, and still her dot moved with me. I wanted to leave. I wanted to bolt out of there, get to my car, call someone, do anything. But if she could track me like this, she would see me move. She would see me panic. I couldn't be sure of anything. I tried subtlety, sitting still, pretending to listen, hoping she wouldn't notice my growing anxiety. But every time I glanced at her phone, that blue dot, my dot, was right there, exact as if it were glued to me. The date ended with me paying, trying to keep my movements calm. Every step to the exit was calculated. She walked out behind me, smiling like nothing was wrong, like this was all perfectly normal. But I couldn't shake the fear. I didn't text her, didn't add her anywhere, went straight home, locked all doors, checked windows. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. And that night, the map haunted me. I kept imagining her dot following me inside my apartment now, tracing my every step. I kept imagining her watching through the camera, through the map, seeing me even when I thought I was safe. I don't know if she can track me still. Maybe she can. Maybe she's just out there waiting, watching, following the blue dot that used to be mine. I deleted the app, deleted my account, changed my routines. Don't go to the diner anymore. Don't walk the streets I used to. But every time I think about her, every time I picture that dot moving exactly with me, it hits the pit of my stomach. I keep my phone off sometimes, hide it in a drawer, move around my apartment cautiously. Can't trust it anymore. Can't trust anyone. I was just killing time swiping through Tinder on a boring Thursday night. The kind where nothing seems interesting until a new face pops up and you feel a tiny spark of curiosity. His profile looked normal at first, smiled in every picture, some coffee shop selfies, a few outdoorsy shots. Nothing out of the ordinary. But then I noticed something. The coffee shop in his first photo. I recognized it instantly because I'd spent 3 afternoons there last month. I even remembered the barista's crooked smile and the way the latte phone never quite stayed. There was no way he could know that unless he'd been there. So I swiped through the rest. Every single location in his pictures was somewhere I'd been in the past year. The little park near my apartment that no one really goes to, the rooftop I climbed once for a sunset photo, a tiny bookstore I read about online but only ever visited once. All of them. Every single place. My stomach started nodding. It wasn't just that he had been in the same places. It was the timing. The photos weren't old. Some were from last week, maybe even the day before, and I had never posted pictures from any of these locations. I didn't tag myself. I didn't leave any trace online. I stared at my phone, scrolling back and forth, trying to convince myself I was imagining it. Maybe he just happened to be in the same spots. Maybe it was a coincidence, but then I saw a reflection in one of the photos, the way the sun hit a corner of a cafe window, the exact angle I'd seen the place from. There was no way he could have gotten that unless he'd been watching. My thumb hovered over the like button, but I couldn't. I froze, thinking about all the times I've been somewhere alone, never telling anyone. The thought of someone taking pictures there without me knowing made my skin crawl. I tried to push it aside. Maybe he was just an obsessive photographer. Maybe the coincidences added up in a weird way. Maybe it wasn't personal. But every time I looked at another picture, my gut twisted. He knew details he shouldn't. The exact table I'd sat at in a cave, the corner bench in the park, the little graffiti on the wall in the alley near my apartment. Stuff I'd read and never shared. I started digging deeper, looked at the metadata on one of the photos. Sometimes the location is hidden there. Nothing. Cleaned. Perfect. Like he wanted it that way. I decided to message him, just to see if he'd reply. Simple hello. No creepy vibes, just a test. He replied almost instantly with a casual text. Nothing unusual. But then he sent another, more casual than casual, referencing the exact angle I'd been standing at in the bookstore when I picked up a notebook. He didn't say it outright, just a detail that made my blood run cold. I stopped messaging. Couldn't. My mind raced. Every photo, every place, every time I'd been alone somewhere, all of it could have been tracked. But how? I had no posts, no check-ins, nothing digital that anyone could follow. I deleted the app, forced myself to sleep, tried to forget. Next week, I read a notification. New match, new profile, different face. I opened it out of curiosity just to see. And all locations were the same. All the same places I've been, same angles, same benches, Same corners. My apartment. The hallway outside my building. The street I always jog on in the morning. They were all there. Photos of someone sitting, standing, leaning, captured when I'd been alone. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to move. Sell everything. Disappear. But the thought of leaving didn't feel safe either. What if he followed me? What if he knew wherever I went next? I stopped going out alone. Started carrying my phone in my hand at all times, even when it wasn't necessary. Started checking every shadow on the streets, every reflection in the windows. Sometimes I think I see him, or someone like him, in the corner of my vision. I haven't matched with anyone on Tinder since. I haven't tried to meet anyone in person. But every time I step outside, I feel watched. Like all the places I've ever been are no longer just memories. They're locations on his map. Places he's been, following me through my own life without me noticing. I can't stop thinking about it. Every corner, every street, every cafe. I keep seeing him in the background, camera ready, just waiting for the right shot. The worst part is knowing he doesn't need to contact me. Doesn't need to talk, he already knows. The date started off completely normal. Too normal, maybe. I met her at this little diner near the river, the kind with sticky boots and neon lights buzzing low, and everything seemed fine. She laughed at the right times, didn't check her phone constantly, even complimented my jacket in a way that felt casual. Nothing screamed warning signs, but it went downhill fast. Conversation dried up. I realized we had nothing in common. Not hobbies, not music, not even the same idea of humor. She laughed at her own jokes. I laughed politely. Plates cleared without us ordering anything else. I paid and suggested splitting the check like normal, but the air felt thick. I could feel her staring, like she knew I was thinking about how to escape politely. I left feeling awkward but relieved. Worst date ever. I got in my car and started driving home, thinking about dinner and how I would just tell my friends it was a disaster. Headlights bounced off the wet streets. Radio low, phone in the passenger seat, face up like always, waiting for nothing. That's when it happened. A notification. New voicemail from her. I thought it was a mistake. Maybe she hit send on something old. She couldn't possibly have already called me, right? I clicked play. It was her voice. Exactly hers. Calm, almost casual, like she was talking across a table in the diner. But it wasn't at the diner. It was in my car. I froze. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. The sound of her voice moved around the cabin like the mic had picked up every angle. The small creaks of the car seat, the faint thump of the turn signal as I hit the corner near my building, even the way the radio hummed underneath. Every tiny noise I was hearing in real time was in the recording. I glanced at the phone. Timestamp was 5 minutes ago, the exact moment I had started driving. My stomach flipped. My first thought was that she somehow got in the car without me noticing. Impossible. Doors locked, keys in my pocket. No way. The voicemail continued. Her voice shifted low, deliberate. She said things she couldn't have known unless she was there. I didn't catch everything at first, partly because I was gripping the wheel too hard, partly because I couldn't believe what was happening. She described the way I had turned the key, the exact angle my head tilted while adjusting the mirror, even the way my knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Every mundane detail was in there. I pulled over into an empty parking lot, trying to make sense of it. Tried to reason. Maybe someone hacked my car. Maybe she had installed something in the diner chair or on the key fob, but none of that made sense. Why would she? And how would she record now? The recording paused, then continued. She whispered something about watching me breathe, about noticing small hesitations. It didn't sound like a threat at first, more like observation. My hands were shaking. I stared out at the dark streets. Headlights in the distance blurred in the rain. I considered calling the police, but what would I say? Someone recorded me in my own car. Sounded insane. I might sound insane saying it. Then her voice got closer, like she leaned into the mic in the front seat. She described the buttons I pressed on the radio, mentioned the soft hum of the tires on wet asphalt. My pulse throbbed with each word. The car felt smaller, tighter. I couldn't look around too quickly. I was terrified to open the doors. I wanted to believe it was a prank, some app that captured ambient sound. But I didn't have any apps running that could do this, and the level of detail too specific. I listened until the message ended, paused for a few seconds, then it repeated, exactly the same. I restarted the phone. Voicemail gone. No history. I checked the app. Nothing. Tried calling her back. Number disconnected. Deleted. Gone. I drove home cautiously, every turn feeling like someone might be in the backseat. I didn't text anyone. Didn't even call a friend. I just kept the car between me and the streetlights, headlights scanning for shadows. Once inside my apartment, I checked doors and windows again, triple locked everything, set the alarm. Phone on the counter, untouched. Then it buzzed. Another notification. Voicemail. My blood ran cold before I even looked. This one was different, shorter, just a whisper, but again, inside my car, describing what I did once I parked and stepped inside. How I locked the door, how I set my bag down, even how my shoes hit the floor. I sat on the couch, trying to make it make sense. Replayed the message in my head, trying to figure out if maybe had left the phone recording without realizing. Didn't add up. Nothing explained it. I didn't sleep that night. Kept the lights on, phone in hand, ears straining for any new sound. Every small noise, neighbor's fridge, my own pipes, made me jump. Next morning, I drove to work. Checked voicemail. Nothing. Cleared history. Phone calm. But the memory of the recording stayed. Every detail. Her voice. The sound of my car, how small it felt. I didn't hear from her again. No texts. No calls. No matches. Nothing. But every time I get into my car, my heart rate spikes. Sometimes I hear a little whisper in my head like the recordings were playing just for me. I still drive alone. But every time I check the backseat twice, make sure doors are locked, windows up. Even when I'm home, I check the interior lights, imagining someone leaning just behind the seat, phone recording. I deleted Tinder, changed my number, reset the car. Nothing helped. Can't explain it. Can't prove it. Just the memory, clear as day, of her voice in my car while I drove home alone. The first time it happened, I thought my phone was glitching. That's the kind of excuse you reach for when something feels wrong, but not wrong enough yet. I was standing in line at a pharmacy, scrolling Tinder out of boredom, when a notification popped up. New message. I opened it without thinking, eyes skimming fast like always. The message was long enough for my brain to register it. Then it vanished. The chat refreshed and looked clean. No message. No typing bubble. Nothing. Just our normal conversation sitting there like it had been untouched. I stood there staring at my phone while the line moved forward without me. The words I just read were still sitting in my head, clear as day. Not vague, not fuzzy, exact, the phrasing, the details, the way it referenced something I hadn't shared. I scrolled up and down, closed the app, opened it again. Nothing. I told myself I imagined it. Brains do that, especially when you're tired. I paid for my stuff and walked home, replaying the words over and over like they'd burned themselves into my head. Later that night, it happened again. Same guy, same chat, another message notification. This time I sat down before opening it, like bracing myself would make a difference. I opened it slowly. The message was longer, more specific. It mentioned where I live, but not the address. Just details you only notice if you've been around. The sound my radiator makes, the light outside my window that flickers, the way I always hesitate before locking my door, like I don't trust it. I felt my stomach drop. Before I could even think about replying, the message disappeared. Not faded, not scrolled away. Gone. The chat looked untouched again. I took screenshots even though there was nothing to capture. I tried screen recording. Nothing showed up. The app acted like nothing had ever been sent. But my memory didn't. I read the message again in my head. Every word, every pause. I could still see the way it was spaced on the screen. I unmatched him immediately, or I tried to. The app froze for a second, then refreshed. The chat was gone. His profile gone too. Problem solved, right? Except the next night, a new match messaged me. Different name. Different photos. Same writing style. The message popped up while I was brushing my teeth. I opened it with foam still in my mouth. It referenced the previous messages. Not directly, not like a recap, more like a continuation, like the conversation had never stopped, only moved somewhere I couldn't see. I watched the message delete itself again. Same timing, same clean wipe, no trace. I sat on my bed with my phone in my lap, heart pounding, telling myself there had to be an explanation. Hat bug, weird spam tactic, some messed up feature test gone wrong. But the messages kept coming. Always late, always when I was alone, always deleting themselves within seconds, sometimes faster, sometimes slow enough that I had time to read them twice. They started pointing things out in real time. Things I was doing, the way I crossed my legs when I got nervous, the way I checked my locks twice before bed, the show playing in the background. Once I tried to not open the message, just let it sit there. I watched the notification preview fade away on its own, and even without opening it, I knew what it said. My brain filled it in like it had been trained. I started sleeping with my phone face down. I stopped using Tinder, but it didn't stop there. The notifications still came through, even logged out. No sender name, just message previews that vanished if I looked too long. I told a friend, showed her my phone. She believed me in that polite way people do when they don't want to argue. She said I should uninstall the app, reset my phone, change passwords. I did all of it. The messages still came. Now they didn't even pretend to be from Tinder. They just appeared. System-style notifications with no source, always deleting themselves, always staying in my head. They started mentioning things I hadn't done yet. Small stuff, like reminding me I'd forget to take the trash out, that I'd check the window before sleeping, that I'd wake up at exactly 3:12 without knowing why. And I did. I stopped trusting my own thoughts. Every idea felt like it might not be mine. Every habit felt watched. I stopped writing things down because I was scared they'd start showing up in the messages before I did them. One night, the message didn't delete right away. I stared at it, afraid to blink. My thumb hovered over the screen, not daring to touch it. The words were calm, familiar, reassuring in a way that felt wrong. It talked about memory, about how deleting something doesn't mean it never happened, about how proof isn't always visible. It stayed there longer than any other message ever had. Then it vanished. I dropped my phone on the bed and covered my face, breathing too fast, trying not to cry. I felt stupid, powerless, like I was losing an argument I didn't even know how to start. The next morning, I woke up with a headache and the strong feeling that I'd read something important before falling asleep. Something longer, something final. But I couldn't remember the exact words this time, just the way of them. That's when I realized the messages were changing me. At first, it stayed clear, burned and sharp. Now they were fading faster, leaving behind only the fear, like my brain couldn't hold on to everything anymore. Last night, I got another one. I remember reading it. I remember how it made my chest hurt. I remember it told me something I wasn't ready to know. But when I try to remember the words now, there's nothing there. Just a blank space where the message should be. And that scares me more than anything else so far. The night this happened started boring in the worst way. Nothing dramatic, nothing emotional. Just me on my bed with my phone 2 inches from my face, thumb sore from scrolling. I wasn't lonely enough to be sad, just restless enough to swipe. That in-between mood where you don't want a relationship, but you also don't want silence. Tinder felt like background noise more than anything else. That's when I matched with her. Her name was Iris. Short bio. Normal photos. Nothing filtered into oblivion. She had this calm look, like she wasn't trying to sell herself. We exchanged a few messages, and that's when the first weird thing happened. I typed something basic, deleted it, retyped it, then hesitated before sending. Before I hit send, she replied. Same words, same phrasing, same dumb typo I always make when I type too fast. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering, convinced I'd already sent it and forgot. I scrolled up. Nothing. My message wasn't there. Only hers. Replied to something that technically didn't exist yet. I laughed it off. Screens glitch. Apps lag. I sent the message anyway. It appeared under hers like it belonged there all along. We kept talking. Every time I paused to think, she replied first. Not vaguely. Perfectly. Jokes landed before I made them. Questions answered before I asked. Even when I tried switching things up, she was already there. It felt like talking to my own echo just half a second ahead. I decided to test it. I started typing something random, stopped halfway, erased it completely, then waited. She replied to the erased version. That's when my stomach tightened. I checked her profile again. Same photos, same bio, nothing new. I checked my Wi-Fi. Full bars. I switched to data. Same thing. I told myself she was just really good at predicting. Some people read patterns well. Some people are fast. I kept talking, but slower now, watching the screen like it might blink. Then she started finishing thoughts I hadn't typed at all. Not messages. Thoughts. Stuff I'd only said out loud earlier that day. Complaining about my neighbor's toe. Mentioning how my front door stuck when it rained. The cracked tile by my sink that I kept meaning to fix. That one made me sit up. I hadn't mentioned my apartment. Not once. We hadn't talked about where I lived, just the city. Nothing specific. I asked how she knew that, or I tried to. Before I could send it, she replied with something about paying attention. My chest felt tight. Not panic yet, more like anticipation, like waiting for a bad beat drop in a song. I locked my phone and tossed it on the bed, stood up, paced my room, told myself to calm down. Coincidences pile up when you look for them. Brains are good at connecting dots that aren't real. My phone buzzed. I picked it up. Another message from her, responding to something I hadn't typed, something about me standing by my window. I froze. I was standing by my window. I moved away slowly, heart starting to pound. My room suddenly felt smaller, like the walls leaned in a little. I typed out a message asking what she meant, then stopped. Deleted it. Waited. She replied anyway. Something about not liking when I got quiet. I sat back down on the bed, phone heavy in my hand. My brain kept trying to explain it. Hacked phone, shared data, someone messing with me, but none of those fit cleanly. I decided to end it. Unmatched. Blocked. Problem solved. Except Tinder wouldn't let me. The app froze when I tried to unmatch. Screen dimmed, then refreshed. Her chat was still there. At the bottom, the typing indicator blinked. Then stopped. Then another message came through. This one felt different. Shorter. Heavier. Not playful. Not clever. It warned me not to open my front door. I stared at it, pulse loud in my ears. My first instinct was to laugh. Like, yeah, okay, creepy timing trick, you got me. I almost typed something sarcastic back. Before I could, there was a knock. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just 3 slow taps. I jumped so hard my phone slipped out of my hand and hit the floor. The sound felt too loud. The knock came again. Same rhythm. Controlled. Patient. My phone buzzed where it lay. Another message. It said not yet. I didn't move. I just stood there staring at my door. My apartment was quiet except for the low hum of the fridge and my own breathing. I checked the time. It was late, but not too late for neighbors. Still, nobody ever knocked on my door without texting first. Another knock. Closer somehow, even though that made no sense. My phone buzzed again. This one explained that someone else was at the door, that it wasn't her. That opening it would make things worse. My hands were shaking so bad I had to sit down. I grabbed my phone and typed asking who she was. Deleted it. Waited. She replied with my question word for word. Then she added something new. Something about how I always hesitate before doing something irreversible. The doorknob turned slightly. Not fully, just enough to test it. I scrambled backward, bumping into my bed. My heart was racing so fast it hurt. I wanted to call someone, but my fingers wouldn't cooperate. Every instinct screamed to run, but run where? My phone buzzed again. She told me to stay still, to stay quiet, that the lock would hold. The knocking stopped. Seconds stretched. My ears rang. I waited for footsteps, for voices, for anything. Nothing. After what felt like forever, I heard movement outside. Not footsteps leaving. More like someone shifting weight, then silence. My phone buzzed one last time. She said it was over now, that I did good. Then the chat disappeared. Not unmatched. Not blocked. Gone, like it never existed. I sat there for a long time after. Didn't move. Didn't breathe right. When I finally got the courage to stand, I checked the door. Lock still in place. No scratches. No notes. Nothing. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I checked Tinder. My account was logged out. When I tried to log back in, it said my phone number wasn't linked to any account. Later that day, my landlord texted saying someone had been trying apartment doors in the building overnight. Said it was probably kids or someone confused. Said not to worry. I still don't know who was on the other side of my door. I don't know how Eris knew. Sometimes when my phone buzzes late at night, my chest tightens before I'd even look. Part of me hopes it's her again. Part of me knows better. I knew something was off before I'd even left the bar, but I didn't have a clean reason to point at. It was more like my body figured it out before my brain did. My shoulders stayed tense even when I smiled, and my keys felt heavier in my hand than usual. I remember thinking I was being dramatic and telling myself to chill out. That thought didn't age well. We met at this narrow place wedged between a laundromat and a closed nail salon. Cheap drinks, flickering lights, sticky floors. Nothing romantic, which I liked. His name was Evan. Profile looked normal. Photos with friends, a dog, one blurry hiking pic. He was polite in that careful way, like he practiced being polite. The date itself wasn't bad. Not great either. Just fine enough to finish a drink and call it a night. When it was time to leave, he offered to drive me home. Casual. No pressure. I said no without even thinking about it. I always do. My place wasn't far, and I liked the walk. He didn't push, which should have been a good sign, but instead it landed wrong, like he'd already expected the answer. We walked out together and split in the parking lot. I headed toward the main road, hoodie zipped up, earbuds in but no music playing. The air was cold and quiet, the kind of quiet where every sound feels closer than it should. A few minutes in, I noticed a car rolling slowly behind me. At first, I didn't think anything of it. Narrow street, late hour. People drive slow around there. I crossed at the next block, and the car followed. Not aggressively, just matching my turns. I sped up a little. The car did too. I slowed down. It slowed down. My stomach dropped. That familiar stinking feeling you get when you realize you're not imagining things anymore. I glanced back and caught the reflection of headlights in a storefront window. Sober setting, one headlight slightly dimmer than the other. I told myself not to panic. I took out my phone and pretended to scroll, then ducked into a bus stop shelter like I was waiting for something. The car rolled past slowly, then stopped about 20 feet ahead. It didn't park. It just idled. I stayed there longer than made sense. Long enough that it should have been awkward if this was nothing. The car stayed. Finally, it pulled away. I waited a full minute before stepping back onto the sidewalk. My heart was racing now, but I kept walking. Told myself I was being paranoid. Told myself it was just a coincidence stacked on a bad mood. 2 blocks later, the car was behind me again. Same headlights, same dim left side. My phone buzzed in my hand. A text from Evan. It said he got home safe and was already in bed. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. The timing made my chest tighten. I checked the timestamp. Recent. Too recent. I looked up. The car slowed as I slowed. The gap between us stayed the same, like it was measured. I crossed the street without signaling. The car crossed too. I turned down a side street that curved through a row of old houses. This wasn't on the way to my place. The sidewalks were cracked, porch lights mostly off. I picked up my pace, boots scuffing louder than I wanted. The car followed. At this point, there was no doubt left. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped my phone. I tried to call my roommate, but it rang too long and went to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. I didn't know what to say yet. I ducked between 2 parked cars and crouched low, heart pounding, breath loud in my ears. I stayed there barely breathing until the car rolled past. I could see the license plate clearly now. I recognized it. Silver sedan, dent near the back bumper. That stupid sticker on the rear window. It was his. I remembered because I'd noticed it earlier when we walked out of the bar. Some random phrase I thought was ironic at the time. The car slowed as it passed my hiding spot. Not enough to stop. Just enough to feel deliberate. Then it kept going. I stayed there way too long after it was gone. My legs felt weak when I finally stood up. I considered running straight home, but the thought of leading him there made my skin crawl. Instead, I turned the opposite direction and walked fast, cutting through streets I barely knew. My phone buzzed again. Another text from him. Something casual about being tired and crashing early. The words felt fake now, like a cover story written for someone else. I didn't respond. I kept moving, checking reflections in windows, scanning shadows. Every car made my heart jump. My throat felt tight, like I was swallowing wrong. Eventually, I reached a gas station near a main road. Bright lights. People. Noise. I went inside and stood near the counter, pretending to browse snacks while my hands stopped shaking. I stayed there until I felt steady enough to think. I called my roommate again. This time she answered. I didn't explain everything. Just told her I needed her to stay on the line while I walked the rest of the way. She didn't ask questions. She just stayed. I made it home without seeing the car again. That night, I didn't sleep much. Every sound outside made me sit up. Every headlight passing the window made my heart race. I kept replaying the night, looking for the moment where I missed something obvious. The next morning, I'd opened Tinder. Evan's profile was still there. Updated bio, new photo, active. I blocked him. A few days later, I was walking the same route in daylight when I noticed something parked across the street from my building. Silver set-in. Dented bumper. Same sticker. It was empty. Engine cold. I didn't go inside right away. I walked past my building and kept going until my legs burned. When I finally circled back, the car was gone. I don't walk that way anymore. I don't take rides. I don't trust polite. Sometimes late at night, I still check the street from my window, just in case one headlight looks dimmer than the other. I didn't feel scared when I walked up the stairs to replace. That's the part that annoys me now. If I felt scared, I could have listened to it and left. Instead, I felt calm in a lazy way, like my brain decided this was just another night that didn't matter much. I remember checking my phone battery and thinking it was enough to get me home. That's how low the stakes felt at the time. Her name was Maren. We matched a week earlier and talked on and off, nothing intense. She was funny in a dry way, sent voice notes instead of long texts, complained about her upstairs neighbor. She asked me over to her apartment to watch something because her internet was better than mine. I didn't think twice. It wasn't late. It wasn't sketchy. It was just a place. The building was old, like it had layers of paint instead of renovations. The hallway smelled faintly like cleaning spray and dust. Her door was already unlocked when I knocked, which I brushed off as casual trust. She waved me in and went back to the kitchen to grab drinks while I stepped inside. The first thing I noticed was the photos. Every wall had frames. Not crowded, but intentional. Evenly spaced. Black frames, white mats. All photos. No posters. No art prints, just photos. I remember thinking she was really into photography or something. I didn't look closely at first. I kicked off my shoes, set my jacket down, glanced around the living room. Couch. Lamp. Bookshelf. Plants that were actually alive. Normal. Then my eyes landed on one photo near the hallway. It was me. Not a selfie. Not a mirror pic. A photo taken from across the street. I was sitting on a bus stop bench, head down, hoodie up, scrolling on my phone. I recognized the jacket immediately. One I'd worn for years. The background was my old neighborhood. I knew because the graffiti behind the bench was specific. It had been painted over since. I felt heat rush to my face. My brain scrambled for logic. Coincidence. Someone who looked like me. I stepped closer. It was me. The angle, the posture, even the scuff on my shoe. That photo wasn't recent. It was from years ago. I hadn't even lived there in a long time. I turned slowly, heart starting to thump. Every frame on the wall suddenly felt louder, heavier. I walked closer to the next one. Me again. Standing in line at a grocery store, looking tired, holding a basket with a frozen meal I remembered buying once because it was cheap. The photo was taken from behind the cereal display. I could tell by the blur in the corner. I started moving faster, each step making my chest tighter. Me walking into my high school. Older photo. Bad haircut. Backpack slung over one shoulder. Taken from far enough away that I never would have noticed someone watching. Me sitting alone at a park table at night, head in my hands. That one made my stomach drop because I remembered that night. I remembered exactly why I was there and how empty everything felt. I never told anyone about that. The kitchen clinked behind me. Bottles sat on the counter, her humming softly. Normal sounds, wrong timing. I kept moving. The hallway had more photos. Dozens. Different years. Different clothes. Different versions of me. Some were blurry like they were rushed. Some were framed perfectly like she waited for the right moment. There were photos from inside places, reflections in windows, angles from corners. One photo stopped me cold. It was taken inside my childhood bedroom. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at the floor. I recognized the posters, the cracked paint near the window, even the stupid lamp I hated. I never had people over back then. Nobody should have been able to take that photo. My hands were shaking now. I could feel it in my fingers, like they weren't fully connected anymore. I backed away and bumped into the wall. That's when I noticed the dates. Small labels under each frame. Handwritten, neat, dates spanning years. Starting way before Tinder existed for me. Way before I ever thought about dating apps. She came back into the room and set a drink on the table. I didn't turn around right away. I was afraid if I did, something else wouldn't line up. Like her face wouldn't match her voice anymore. I finally looked. She was watching me, but not in a confused way. More like she was waiting for a reaction she'd already imagined. Her eyes flicked from my face to the wall behind me, then back. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My throat felt locked. She gestured casually toward the couch, like this was still a normal hangout, like the walls weren't screaming. I walked past her instead, toward the front door. My legs felt weak, like I'd stood up too fast. I grabbed my jacket and fumbled with the handle. The door didn't open right away. It stuck, just for a second, long enough for my heart to spike. Behind me, I heard her take a step closer. Not rushing. No panic. Just calm. The door finally opened, and I stepped into the hallway, not even looking back. I took the stairs two at a time, nearly tripping, hands sweating, chest burning. I didn't stop until I was outside. I leaned against the building and tried to breathe. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I almost dropped it pulling it out. A notification from Tinder. A message from Mrn. I didn't open it. I blocked her. Unmatched. Deleted the app entirely. For days after, I kept noticing things. People standing too long. Reflections that didn't feel right. I checked my windows at night. Double locked my door. I told myself I was being paranoid, but then I remembered the photo in my bedroom. Weeks later, curiosity got the better of me. I reinstalled Tinder. I searched her name. Nothing. No profile. No trace. Sometimes I wonder if she took new photos after that night. If there's a frame somewhere with me running down those stairs, face pale, jacket half on. Sometimes I imagine a blank space on her wall waiting. The first thing that bothered me wasn't the notebook. It was the silence before I even saw it. That weird quiet where your brain taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, pay attention. I ignored it because I always do. I was tired of overthinking, tired of bailing on plans, tired of being the girl who assumes the worst and misses out. So I put on my shoes and went anyway, telling myself this was just another date that would turn into a story I'd forget by next week. His name was Noah. Basic profile. Decent photos. Not trying too hard. We matched after like 3 swipes, talked for a few days, nothing intense. He suggested hanging out at his place first before going out, which I normally wouldn't do, but he lived close and said his roommate wasn't home. I told a friend where I'd be, shared my location, did all the stuff you do to feel responsible. His apartment was clean in that stage way. Not messy, not cozy. Like a model unit nobody actually lived in. Gray couch. Blank walls. One plant that looked fake but wasn't. He acted normal. Friendly, a little stiff, but I figured that was nerves. We sat on opposite sides of the couch, knees not touching, talking about boring things. Work. Commute. How bad the weather had been. The silence crept in again when he got up to grab drinks. Not awkward silence. Alert silence. The kind that feels washed even when nobody's looking. That's when I noticed the notebook. It was on the coffee table, half tucked under a coaster. Black cover. No title. Thick, like it had been used a lot. I wouldn't have touched it if it was closed, but it wasn't. It was open right in the middle like it wanted to be seen. I leaned forward just enough to glance, not snoop. I swear that was my intention. The page was filled, not doodles, not notes, rows, neat handwriting, names listed down the left side, some crossed out, some circled. Next to each name were numbers and short bullet points, observations, adjustments, outcomes. I recognized the pattern before I understood it. It took my brain a few seconds to catch up to what my eyes already knew. They were women. Dozens of them. Each page looked the same. Name, a score. Notes about what went wrong. Notes about how to correct it next time. Things like talk less here, wait longer before asking questions, mirror posture, avoid mentioning family too early. There were arrows, check marks, dates. My mouth went dry. I kept telling myself not to flip the page, that this was already too much, but my hand moved anyway, slow, quiet, like I could undo it if I wanted. The next page had a name I recognized. Mine. Not just my first name, my full name, spelled right. There was a blank space next to it. No score yet. Just a list started underneath. First impression, clothing choice, body language, eye contact, response speed. Things he was clearly filling in as the night went on. My chest felt tight, but I didn't panic. Not yet. I've learned panic comes later, when it's safer. Right then, I needed to understand. I flipped back a few pages. Older entries. Some had notes written in darker ink like revisions. Comments added after the fact. There were phrases that made my skin crawl. Adjustments failed. Subject reacted negatively. Escalate slower. Exit earlier. Some names were crossed out completely, thick lines through them like they were done. Others had notes in the margin that just said no repeat. I heard footsteps and snapped the notebook shut. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. He came back with 2 drinks and sat down like nothing was wrong. Placed the glass right next to the notebook, like that was intentional. I tried to act normal. Nodded, smiled, responded, but my brain was replaying what I'd seen on a loop. The structure of it, the calmness, the way it wasn't angry or emotional, just methodical. He leaned forward slightly, and I noticed his eyes flick to the notebook, then to me, then back, but check in, like he was tracking my awareness level. I made an excuse to use the bathroom, grabbed my phone and walked down the short hallway. The bathroom was spotless, barely used. I locked at the door and leaned against it, breathing through my nose, trying not to spiral. I checked my location share, still on. Texted my friend something vague. My hands were shaking so bad I mistyped twice. When I came back out, he was standing by the coffee table, notebook in his hand. Not hiding it. Not embarrassed. Just holding it open like a menu. He wasn't reading it, though. He was watching me. I didn't sit back down. I grabbed my jacket and said I needed to go. My voice sounded steady, which surprised me. He nodded like he'd expected that outcome, like it matched one of his predictions. As I stepped toward the door, I glanced back at the notebook one last time, which I hadn't. He'd already written more under my name. Notes about noticing the notebook, reaction timing, avoidance behavior, probability of early exit. There was even a small arrow pointing to a line that said refined concealment next time. That's when fear finally hit. I left, didn't wait for the elevator, took the stairs 2 at a time. My legs felt weak, but I didn't stop until I was outside. The air felt loud. Cars. Voices. Life. I got home and sat on my bed in the dark for a long time, replaying everything. Wondering how many times he'd done this, how many pages there were, how long he'd been practicing. The next morning, curiosity got the better of me again. I opened Tinder. His profile was still there. Updated photo. New bio line about being intentional and self-improving. Same smile. I blocked him. A week later, I was scrolling online and saw a post in a local group. Someone warning about a guy who kept detailed notes on dates. The comments were full of women recognizing the pattern. Different names, same notebook, same method. None of them mentioned police. None of them mentioned confrontation. Just warnings. Sometimes at night, I think about that blank score next to my name. I think about how close I came to being just another completed entry. I should have taken it as a sign that my phone battery dropped from 40 to 5% in 10 minutes while I was getting ready. That never happens unless something's wrong. I remember standing in my bathroom, hoodie half on, toothbrush still on the sink, watching the percentage tick down like it was nervous. I almost canceled. Not because I was scared, but because I felt off, like the night already happened and I was just walking into the replay. Her name was Hannah. Simple name. Safe name. We matched 2 days earlier and talked just enough to feel real. Nothing intense. No trauma dumping. Just jokes about bad weather and food spots that close too early. We planned to meet at a late-night diner near the highway. Bright lights, cracked boots. The kind of place that feels neutral. I like neutral. Before I left, I did the thing everyone pretends they don't do. I Googled her name. I wasn't snooping hard. Just a quick check to make sure she wasn't secretly famous or married or a catfish using stolen pics. I typed her full name and the city she said she lived in. I expected Instagram links or maybe a graduation post. The first result was an obituary. I stared at it longer than I want to admit. The photo was her. Not similar. Not close. Her exact Tinder photo, just cropped differently. Same smile. Same head tilt. Same freckle near her eye. The date at the top said 3 years ago. My chest felt tight, but I told myself people share names. Faces get reused. The internet is messy. Then I noticed the details. Same age, same city. Same high school listed in the obituary blurb. Same favorite coffee mentioned in the little paragraph written by family. My hands went cold. I scrolled, expecting the bottom to make sense. It didn't. There was a section that listed time of death. It wasn't filled out yet. Instead of a normal time, it had today's date. No hour, just the date, like it was waiting. I refreshed the page. Same thing. I opened it in a different browser. Same result. I checked the URL, thinking it might be some weird fake page. It wasn't. Local newspaper site. Comments from years ago. Condolences. Everything lined up. I locked my phone and just stood there, listening to my fridge hum. I thought about canceling. About blocking her. About pretending my phone died for real. But curiosity is louder than fear when fear doesn't have a shape yet. I told myself it was a glitch, or a sick joke, or someone with too much time. I went anyway. The diner parking lot was half empty. A couple trucks. One flickering streetlight. When I walked in, the smell of grease hit me like always. Nothing supernatural. Nothing tense. That almost made it worse. She was already there. Sitting in a booth near the window, scrolling on her phone, wearing the jacket she sent me a pic of earlier. She looked alive. Annoyed. Bored. Normal. When she looked up and saw me, her face changed in that way people do when they recognize someone from photos. Relief mixed with nerves. I slid into the booth across from her. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I ignored it. I needed to see if anything about her felt wrong. It didn't. She moved like a real person. Tapped the table when she thought. Leaned back when she laughed. Her eyes tracked mine naturally. No delay. No emptiness. I kept waiting for something off. But the longer I sat there, the more the obituary felt like a mistake. Until my phone buzzed again. I pulled it out under the table. 5% battery. Somehow still on. A notification from my browser. The obituary page updated. Time of death now had an hour. It was wrong. It was ahead, listed for later that night. I felt sick. I looked back up at her and noticed a small cut on her finger. Fresh, like she nicked herself earlier. I don't know why that stood out, but it did. She kept rubbing it absent-mindedly, leaving a faint smear on the napkin. Everything she talked about lined up with what was online. Same college major. Same old job. Same timeline. But there were gaps. Moments where she paused like she was checking a list in her head before continuing. The waitress came by, dropped menus, walked away. Time felt stretched. The diner lights buzzed overhead too loud. I excused myself and went to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and opened my phone again. The battery dropped to 2%. The obituary refreshed on its own. The time changed again. Closer. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the phone. I tried to screenshot it. The screen went black. Battery dead. I leaned my head against the stall door and tried to breathe. I told myself I was spiraling. Coincidences stack when you let them. I washed my face and stared at myself in the mirror. I looked pale, real, alive. When I got back to the booth, she was watching the door like she expected me not to return. When she saw me, her shoulders relaxed. That scared me more than anything else. I sat back down. I checked the clock on the wall. It matched the obituary time window. Too close. I started noticing things I hadn't before. She didn't cast much of a shadow under the table. The reflection in the window behind her lied slightly when she moved, just enough that I couldn't unsee it. My phone vibrated once, somehow back on, 1% battery, no notification preview, just a vibration like a reminder. I didn't check it. I didn't want to see the time. The air in the diner felt thick. The buzzing lights got louder. I realized nobody else had come in or left since I arrived. The same people were frozen in their booths, chewing the same bites over and over. She reached for her drink and knocked it over. It spilled across the table, soaking the napkins. The liquid didn't drip off the edge. It stopped right at the border, like the table was containing it. That's when I stood up. I didn't explain. I didn't grab my jacket. I just walked toward the door. My chest burned like I was running even though I wasn't. Behind me, I felt pressure. Not hands, just presence. The door opened too easily. Cold air hit my face. The parking lot looked darker than before. Emptier. My phone buzzed again, then died completely. I got in my car and drove. I didn't look back. I didn't check mirrors. I drove until the diner lights vanished and my hands stopped shaking. When I got home, I charged my phone and opened the browser. The obituary was complete. Time of death filled in. Exact minute. Listed at the diner's address. Cause of death not listed. The photo was the same, but the name at the top wasn't hers anymore. It was mine. I didn't plan on going out that night. That's how it always starts, I know, but this time it's true in a boring way. I was already in bed, phone on my chest, half a reading random posts, when Tinder buzzed. The app only ever does that when it wants attention. His name was Caleb. We matched a few days earlier and barely talked. No deep convos, no late night dumping, just memes and one-sentence replies. He asked if I wanted to grab something warm because it was cold out, and I said yes without thinking too hard. That's what freaks me out now, how easy it was. We met at the cafe tucked behind a strip of closed shops. Not cute, not popular. The kind of place that always smells like cinnamon even when nobody orders it. I showed up first and took a seat near the wall because I like having my back covered. I remember noticing how quiet it was, like the building swallowed sound. The windows were fogged up even though it wasn't that cold. When Caleb walked in, nothing about him stood out. Average height, normal jacket, messy hair that looked like he didn't fight it too hard. He smiled like he was relieved to see me, which put me at ease. I hate admitting that. We ordered and sat down, and for the first few minutes, it felt normal. Awkward in a harmless way. The kind of date you forget about by the next week. Then he brought up my childhood nickname. Not in a testing way. Not like fishing. Just dropped it casually, like it was a known fact. The name only my family used when I was little. Not something on social media. Not something I ever put online. I froze, but I laughed it off because that's what you do when something doesn't make sense yet. I'd assumed maybe he had mentioned it before and forgot. Memory is weird like that. A few minutes later, he mentioned my old middle school. Not just a name. A hallway layout. How the lockers on the east side always jammed. Then he referenced my locker number. The exact number. I felt my stomach tighten, but my brain still tried to fix it. Maybe a coincidence. Maybe he went there too. Except he didn't say it like a guess. It was stated like a detail that belonged to him as much as me. I started paying closer attention. The cafe felt smaller. The cinnamon smell got heavier. He knew where I used to live before we moved. The street name. The way the porch light flickered. The color of the carpet in my childhood bedroom. Not broad stuff. Specific things. Things I hadn't thought about in years. Every time I reacted, he didn't seem surprised. He looked almost relieved, like I was finally catching up to something he'd been waiting on. The worst part came when he brought up the dream. I have this recurring dream I've had since I was a kid. I've never told anyone because it sounds dumb and personal and unfinished. It's not dramatic. It's just me standing in a school gym alone with the lights off, knowing someone is sitting in the bleachers even though I can't see them. That's it. No ending, no explanation. just that feeling of being watched from the dark. He mentioned it like a random thought, like something everyone dreams about. He described the gym, the lights, the bleachers, and the exact feeling I always wake up with. He even referenced the smell of old floor polish, which I've never put into words before. I didn't smile that time. I couldn't. My hands were cold, and I realized my drink hadn't been touched in a while. I checked my phone on the table, pretending to scroll. I opened my social media, my old photos, my archived posts. Nothing explained this. No oversharing. No clues. I started thinking about data breaches, hacked accounts, creepy deep dives. But that only works if someone is obsessed. We barely talked. There was no time for that level of dating unless he started way before we matched. The cafe door opened and closed, but nobody else came in. I noticed the barista hadn't moved in a while, just standing there, staring at the machine like it owed him money. Time felt thick, like it was slowing down around our table. Caleb leaned forward slightly, resting his arms like this was the most natural moment in the world. That's when I noticed something else. His eyes didn't blink much. Not in a dramatic way, just enough that it felt off once I noticed it. He started mentioning things I hadn't even remembered until he said them. A note I passed in class that got confiscated. The name of my first imaginary friend. The exact spot on the playground where I split my knee open. Each detail landed heavier than the last, like stacking weight on my chest. I stood up. I didn't make an excuse. I just stood. My chair scraped loud against the floor, and that finally broke the stillness. The barista flinched. Caleb didn't. As I grabbed my bag, he mentioned something that made my vision blur for a second. He referenced a thought I had earlier that day. Not a plan. Not something I wrote down. Just a passing thought while brushing my teeth. The kind you forget seconds later. That's when I knew it wasn't about information. It wasn't about stalking. It was about access. I backed away from the table, heart pounding, and headed for the door. My hand was shaking so bad I dropped my keys. When I bent down to pick them up, I noticed something carved into the underside of the table. A small set of initials. Mine. Carved the way I used to write them when I was bored in class. I didn't look back. I walked out into the cold and kept going until my legs hurt. I didn't stop until I hit a bus stop 3 blocks away. I sat there, breathing too fast, replaying everything, trying to find a crack in it. Something that proved I wasn't losing it. Later that night, I opened Tinder. Caleb's profile was gone, unmatched, erased, like it never existed. But I still dream about the gym. Only now, when I turn toward the bleachers, I know exactly who's sitting there. The first weird thing wasn't the loop. It was how normal everything felt right before it started. That's what messes with me the most. Nothing spooky, nothing tense. Just a gray afternoon and me killing time before dinner. I remember thinking this was the safest possible plan. Coffee, daylight, people around. If something went bad, I could just leave. That thought feels like a joke now. We matched the night before. Her name was Leela. Nothing flashy about her profile. Messy smile, thrifted jacket, bio that said she liked places that smelled like burnt beans. We joked about bad coffee and agreed to meet at this small cafe near the bus depot. Not trendy. Not romantic. The kind of place you go to wait for something else to happen. I got there early and grabbed a seat near the window. The cafe had one of those scratched wooden floors that always feels a little sticky, like it's never fully clean. There was a single song playing over the speakers, some soft looping beat with no lyrics. It felt unfinished, like background noise from a game menu. The barista was a guy with a beanie and tired eyes, moving like he'd done the same motions 1,000 times already that day. Lila showed up right on time. She looked like her photos, which already felt like a win. We sat, ordered, did the normal first date stuff, small laughs, surface level stories. Nothing worth remembering. That's important. Because when things started repeating, I knew it wasn't just nerves messing with my head. About 20 minutes in, I checked my phone and realized I was running late to meet my cousin. I told myself I'd finish my drink and head out. Simple. I stood up. Everything blinked. Not black. Not darkness. Just a snap. Like when a video buffers for half a second. I was sitting back in my chair. My coffee was full again. Not refilled. Untouched. The same song started from the beginning. Same soft beat. Same timing. The barista was wiping the counter in the exact same pattern as before. I thought I spaced out. I do that sometimes. so I stood up again. Blink. Same seat, same full cup, same smell of burnt beans. This time I laughed, because what else do you do when reality does something dumb? I looked around to see if anyone else noticed. No one did. People were frozen in normal motion, like extras looping background actions. My phone buzzed on the table. A message from Leela, not in front of me. On the app, the text said, "Why are you trying to escape?" No punctuation. No emojis, just that. I looked up at her. She was sitting across from me, stirring her drink even though it didn't need stirring. Her expression hadn't changed, but her eyes were more focused now. Like she was waiting for me to catch up. I didn't answer the message. I stood up slower this time, like moving carefully might stop whatever was happening. Blink. Back in the chair. This time something new. The barista looked straight at me, just for a second. Then he looked away and kept wiping the counter. My heart was going way too fast. I grabbed my phone and tried to text my cousin. The screen froze. Not the app. The entire phone. Then it reset to my lock screen like nothing happened. Another message came through from Leela. Same words. "Why are you trying to escape?" I pushed my chair back hard enough that it scraped loud. Nobody reacted. The sound didn't even echo. It felt swallowed. I walked toward the door. Halfway there, the smell of coffee vanished, replaced by that burnt smell you get when a machine overheats. My ears rang. The song restarted mid-step. Blink. Back in the chair. This time, Lila wasn't stirring her drink. She was watching me. Not angry. Not smiling. Just studying me like I was a problem she expected. I noticed details that didn't line up. The clock above the counter always said 3:40. Never moved. The foam pattern on my coffee was identical every time. A little heart shape that I definitely didn't ask for. I tried a different approach. Instead of standing, I slid out of the chair sideways. My knee hit the table. Pain felt real. That gave me hope. Blink. Back again. The pain was gone. My phone buzzed again. Same message. Then another one right after. Same words, stacked on top of each other. I finally replied. I typed something basic, asking what she meant. The message sent, but her phone on the table never lit up. Instead, my screen changed on its own. The chat erased my message and replaced it with hers again. "Why are you trying to escape?" I realized then that every time I tried to leave, the cafe didn't reset because of me. It reset to keep me there, like the place itself was reacting. I looked around harder, really looked. Nobody blinked. Nobody shifted unless it was part of their loop. A woman near the window laughed every 30 seconds. Same laugh. Same head tilt. Over and over. The barista finally spoke. Not to me. Just out loud. He said the order number like he always did. Same tone. Same rhythm. But this time, no one picked it up. Leela's cup was empty now. Mine wasn't. I tried to tip the table over. Grabbed the edge and pulled. It didn't move. It felt bolted to the floor. My hands started to sweat, but when I wiped them on my jeans, they were dry again. Reset. I thought about the door, about forcing it, about running full speed, but every time I even leaned forward, my phone buzzed. "Why are you trying to escape?" The words started to feel less like a question and more like a reminder, like the cafe was asking me to remember something I'd agreed to and forgot. I searched my memory, the match, the swipe, the location. Everything felt normal, except one thing. I remembered the app lagging when I matched with her, the screen freezing for a second before loading her profile. I remembered thinking my phone was just being weird. Leela finally stood up. When she did, the loop didn't reset. That scared me more than anything else. She walked toward the door and held it open. The outside looked wrong, too flat, like a picture of the street instead of the street itself. My phone buzzed one last time. Same message. I stayed in my chair. The song kept playing. The clock stayed at 3:40. The barista wiped the counter. Eventually, Leela sat back down. The door closed on its own. The loop continued, but slower now. Stretched. I don't know how long I've been here. Time doesn't stack right. I don't feel hungry. My coffee never gets cold. My phone still works, sort of. I can write this. I just can't leave. The song restarted again. I almost didn't go out that night, and that's the part that keeps looping in my head. The part where I could have stayed home, doom scrolling, half watching videos, pretending I wasn't bored. Instead, I put on a clean hoodie and convinced myself this was finally a normal Tinder thing. Just food, awkward laughs, maybe a second date if it didn't crash and burn. Nothing dramatic. Nothing weird. That thought alone feels stupid now. The place was this low-key restaurant near the marina, all glass windows and dim yellow lights, the kind of spot that tries to feel cozy, but mostly feels tired. You could smell salt from the water mixed with fried food. I showed up early because I always do that when I'm nervous, and I kept checking my phone like it might suddenly explain why my chest felt tight. Her name was Emma. At least that's what the app said. We'd been messaging for about a week. Nothing deep, just dumb jokes and late replies. She sent me a pic that morning of her outfit, so I knew who to look for, or at least I thought I did. When I walked in, the host glanced at her tablet and smiled like this was routine. She asked my name and nodded, then pointed toward the back. I took like 5 steps before she stopped me and said there were actually 2 reservations under my name. She said it casually, like it happened all the time. I laughed because I thought it was some system glitch. I didn't even process it at first. She led me to the first table right by the window. Sitting there was Emma. Same face from the photos, same eyes, same mole near her jaw. But the outfit was wrong. Not just different from the pic she sent, but totally different style. Darker, heavier. Her hair was cut shorter, uneven, like she'd done it herself. Her expression wasn't excited or nervous. It was flat, almost bored. She looked up at me like she'd been waiting too long. Before I could even fully stop walking, the host said the second table was just a few steps away. I turned my head, already annoyed, already ready to correct the mistake. That's when I saw her again. Same face, exact same face. Same eyes, same mole, same everything. But this version was wearing the outfit from the photo she sent me that morning. Her hair was longer, brushed, pulled back the same way I'd seen in the picture. She looked up and smiled in a way that made sense. Nervous but friendly. The way someone looks when they're on a first date and hoping it goes okay. I stood there like an idiot, frozen between 2 tables that both had my name on them and both had the same girl sitting at them. The host didn't seem to notice anything wrong. She just walked away, menus tucked under her arm, leaving me in this weird bubble where nothing lined up. Both of them focused on me at the same time. No words, just attention. I could feel people around us, forks clinking, someone laughing at the bar, but it all felt muted, like my ears were stuffed with cotton. I checked my phone fast, like it might save me. No new messages. The profile photo was still there, still Emma, still the same face. No clues, no explanation. The one in the outfit from the photo started gesturing toward the empty chair across from her. Calm, patient. The other one leaned back slightly, arms crossed, watching me like she already knew how this would go. Both of them acted like I was late, like I was the one messing things up. I tried to rationalize it. Sisters. Twins. Some prank that got way out of hand. But the more I looked, the more wrong it felt. Not just the matching faces, but the way they moved. They mirrored each other without trying. When one shifted in her seat, the other did a second later. When one blinked slow, the other blinked fast. It was like watching the same person split into 2 different moods. I finally sat down. I don't even remember choosing which table. My body just moved. I ended up across from the one wearing the outfit from the photo, because that felt logical, like following rules would keep things normal. As soon as I sat, the other one leaned forward at her table, eyes locked on me like I just failed a test. The server came over and dropped off water like nothing was wrong. She didn't even hesitate between tables. She just asked if we were ready. Both of them nodded at the same time. I didn't. The one across from me started tapping her fingers on the table, a nervous habit that matched something Emma had told me about in chat. The other one didn't move at all. She just watched. I could feel her stare like pressure on the side of my face. I started noticing details I didn't want to notice. The one I sat with smelled like the shampoo she'd mentioned liking. The other one smelled like nothing, like air. When I glanced over, her reflection didn't line up right in the window behind her. It lagged, just slightly. My phone buzzed on the table. A message notification from Tinder. My stomach dropped. I looked down and saw it was from Emma. Same profile pic. Same name. The message was short. It said she was already there and asking where I was. Before I could even think, another message came through. Same name. Same pic. Same words. Sent at the exact same minute. My hands felt numb. I looked up and both of them were watching me now, faces tilted the same way. The one I sat with looked confused. The other one looked annoyed, like this whole thing was taking too long. I stood up so fast my chair scraped loud enough for people to look. I didn't care. I backed away from the table, eyes bouncing between them, trying to spot something, anything that would make one of them less real. I couldn't. As I backed up, I noticed the table cards. Both said my name. Same spelling. Same handwriting. No mistake. I walked out. I didn't say anything. I didn't grab my jacket. I just left. The cold air outside hit me hard, and I kept walking until the lights of the restaurant blurred behind me. My phone kept buzzing in my pocket over and over, but I didn't look. Later that night, at home, I finally opened the app. Emma's profile was gone. No messages, no match history, like she never existed. I still pass that restaurant sometimes. The marina smells the same. The lights are still dim. Every time I glance inside, I swear I see two empty tables by the window, both waiting.